Skype, you're not ripe for the picking girl. Pretty lame, playing games with my heart. Why won't you start and restart? Skype, I wanna take a bite of your fanny. Not treated right, 'cause you're not treating me right. Now we've got to be in the mood. We gotta. If people like it, we're in the mood.
Yeah,
They want us to have energy.
There's no such thing. Not today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Podtoid. We've been trying to get this recording done for about an hour so far. We've had tech problems. So it's probably not going to be, the 2.5 hour extravaganza that it normally shouldn't be. So that's the state of play. It's also a fucking heatwave again in shitty. That's what I call it now because I'm subversive. I call Mississippi shitty. So this office is hot because I don't put the fans on because it would affect the quality, the high fidelity audio quality that Podtoid has become associated with. So that's a thing. So I apologise if this is a shit show, but Willem Dafoe might be in the next Quantic Dream game, so that is a thing.
Is that really true?
It's a rumour so far. It's a real rumour. So, given Quantic's obsession with turning everything it does into a pretend movie, it would make sense. I mean, if they've gotten Ellen Page already, Willem Dafoe won't be hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, I think he is a little lower on the Hollywood totem pole these days. As sad as that may be, Ellen Page is a hot up-and-comer, whereas Willem Dafoe is kind of like, oh yeah, that guy, whenever you need a goblin or just a scary person, get him. But other than that, he's, only in smaller films.
I hope that's... because a lot of people have pointed it out, and they're right to. That face with Quantic Dream's creepy, uncanny valley graphical shit is going to be terrifying.
Yeah, just the wrinkle physics alone will be fantastic when he does the grin, and maybe he'll shake his head around a little bit.
David Cage.
I'd love it if the whole game was just him making faces and sounds, just popping out of closets.
What Quantic should do is, on the Nintendo 64, when you had Mario's face and you just pulled it about and stretched it. Yeah. That's what they need for Willem Dafoe. Just Willem's head in stunning high definition, Quantic Dream level, facial animations. And it's just floating, going, I'm Willem Dafoe. And then you just pull bits of it and stretch his mouth and pull his eyes, and he's just I can see your dreams.
That could be a whole game if you feed him. I mean, Seaman was basically like that. It was just looking at the face of a strange person who happened to have a fish body. That can carry a whole game if designed well enough. And now that you're bringing it up, I'm thinking about how good of an idea that is, technically speaking, because in the old days, in the Dreamcast days, they would only do a close-up on a character so they could use all of the graphics in the whole system just to render their face so it looked as real as possible. They could do that with the Willem Dafoe. Just think of the entire PS3 used only to render. Instead of a background, there's no... the whole world is just Willem Dafoe's face. They could do that.
Yeah, it looks more Willem Dafoe than Willem Dafoe does. It's just huge on a big 70-inch plasma screen. Just, and you're pulling his teeth out and small trees are growing in the hole in the gums in place of the trees, and he's just got a big tree forest mouth, and birds are flying out of it, and he's just going, forest mouth, blah, like that, and it's in 3D, you've got your 3D glasses, and you're seeing these little birds flying out of the trees in his mouth, and they've got the face of Willem Dafoe.
Whoa.
And they're squawking, but like Willem Dafoe, so it's like, thousands of them, mate. Just, and then it's just screaming, and like his eyes just like melt, like yogurt out of his eyes. And then two like serpents come out of his eyes, like one out of each eye, and they've got Willem's face. And they've got little trees in their mouths. And tiny birds with Willem Dafoe's face are coming out of them. And they're all making noise. Thousands of these things. Which I do realise totally takes away from your point of just having one face.
With some programming trickery.
I got a bit carried away.
Yeah, no, it was a brilliant idea. They with programming trickery, they could make it happen. You know, just lower res on the birds. Different particle effects, different filters. Use some filters on there. It could be good.
I would like it if...
That's me talking about video game hardware.
I would like it if they remade Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, but Willem Dafoe's face was on all of the birds. And the birds were just constantly going, I'm a bird.
I like it when Willem Dafoe does different moods, though. You know, he's like, "Oh, that's nice." You know, sometimes it'll be like that. Like someone will give him a home-baked cookie. That's good. And he'll be happy, and then he'll be curious about something. He's got a whole range, and I love it. He's a great actor.
But I think, obviously, people have drowned me in links to this rumor because of the Podtoid connection. Because we haven't done it for the past 2 weeks. I've got one today, though. But normally every week we do a movie pitch for Willem Dafoe. My story on this rumor just hit Destructoid, and I was quite proud of what I wrote, because I think it's very fitting that Quantic Dream and, of course, David Cage is doing the story that Willem Dafoe will be in for, I think Podtoid has shown that I've got this desire to see Willem Dafoe star in ludicrously written, disjointed movies with horrible dialogue and plots that make no sense. So David Cage is the perfect man to make my dreams come true.
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
Do you get it or not? I'm saying he's a stupid writer.
But, there's a fine line, as Spinal Tap and I have said a lot of times. There's a fine line between clever and stupid, and he could be smart if he just let someone else make his game good, and I think Willem Dafoe is the person to do that. Well, David Cage needs a voice, like just someone looking over his shoulder. I think I've said this before. Just every 5 minutes, just to slap him in the side of the head. Just do it, and Pavlovian, whatever he's doing at that time, and it's guaranteed to be stupid, he won't do anymore. And eventually, through this training, we might be able to filter out half the shit and come up with something that makes sense. His intentions are good, sort of. I mean, they're sometimes good. Sometimes he wants to make a new and interesting kind of video game. That is a good intention. But I think the trouble is he wants to make new and interesting video games, but he does that by making old and tired movies. Exactly. The tropes, awkwardly shoehorned into Heavy Rain, was just old movie ideas. Yeah. And even old movie actors. He just took that detective from a movie and was like, oh, I'll just use him. His whole outfit and everything. What was his name again? Sharpie or Sharky or something? I can't even remember. I can't remember anything about that film anymore. I just called it accidentally a film. That wasn't even intentional, that game anymore. The guy, it's smoke and mirrors, what I'm seeing. The guy talks about changing the face of video games, but he's just willfully and gleefully plundering from Hollywood to do it. Yeah, he's not bringing anything new, especially narratively. I mean, in terms of gameplay even, it was
I mean, it was an evolved form, certainly, but the basis of it can be found in Dragon's Lair.
Yeah, it's like a point-and-click Dragon's Lair.
I don't even mean that disparagingly. I mean, the game section of Heavy Rain was decent and enjoyable in many ways. But it wasn't new, really.
No. And it boils down to... I've been meaning to write about this. I think I did, but I didn't write about it well enough, actually, now that I think about it. When someone makes a new game and they're trying to make an art game or make a game that's defies what is known to make money, and they're doing it because they really mean it, that's all well and good. But if other intentions seem to be part of your decision making, like with David Cage, part of him really wants to make a piece of art, and then this other part of him that just really wants to be a famous movie director and get that respect and love that movies get. When that leaks in, it makes it ingenuine and pretentious and hard to like. And that'll happen with indie games too. You'll be playing this new indie game and it's I have all these great ideas, but then you just get that feeling that it was made to make the creator feel really clever, and they didn't really care if you liked it.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to like it after that. Whenever a developer or anyone makes something, then you start to think they made this so they could feel good about themselves, and they didn't really care if I liked it or not, then it's hard to feel as respectful of it, I think, after that.
I agree with the basis of that. You see that with quite a few art games where they set out, before they even have the idea, they seem to set out to want to make something new and provocative.
Which is a fine idea. Yeah,
it's a noble goal, but when it's the only goal, and when
it's done so you can then feel good about yourself, like, oh, I made art today, aren't I great? Then you're not really making art anymore. You're just feeding your own ego, which is stupid and gross.
Yeah, pretty much. And half of them, I've said this before, there's a Jimquisition video on it where a lot of art games are no more innovative or interesting than your average grey-brown military shooter. A lot of art games just steal from each other. There seems to be this attitude that an art game has to act a certain way to be an art game, and it's usually the way everyone else is acting. I'm going to expand on that by pointing out the difference between a game like Dear Esther and a game like Stanley Parable. These are two games where you mostly just walk and the story happens at you. But one of them does it in a way that makes the player feel very involved and influential on the story, and the other one is just literally walking around a dusty museum. Metaphorically, you just go from point A to point B very slowly, while audio just tells you a bedtime story, more or less. And there's a big difference between the two, and one of them clearly set out to be art above all else, and one of them wanted to be enjoyable. Or means something on some level other than letting you think how clever the developer is. Right.
Yeah. And that's what art has come to mean to a lot of people. They hear art game and they're like, oh, a game where I'm supposed to be impressed with how clever someone is. But art game is really supposed to mean, oh, a game where a guy really or a girl tried to express themselves hard and put making money on the back burner to really, let me know who they are. That's what art game should mean, gosh darn it, Jim.
Yep. Rootin' tootin'.
We agree on things. Sometimes.
Sometimes we do.
Yeah, a good amount. I always see your point. I always like your point. I don't always...
I can show you my point.
I don't always have the exact same point, but that would be boring, wouldn't it? If I was
it's good that our points vary, and we can take our points out and compare our points, and then rub the piss holes of our points together while doing deep kissing.
Ouch!
It would be a lovely sensation, and then we could piss. We could just piss. We could, and it could just land on our naked feet while we deep kiss with tongues. And fart as well. We're just kissing and we're pissing, like the old Willem Dafoe movie idea. They're bringing it full circle. We just stood stood next to each other. No, stood face to face, naked, kissing. Our hands aren't touching each other. They're rigidly at our sides to keep it weirdly cold and strange. And we're just urinating, and our urine's mixing up on the floor, soaking into the carpet. And we're just farting as well, just not even straining. It's just they're just falling out of our asses.
Is it like a constant fart or a bunch of little farts?
Little farts.
They are funny, or just
yeah, just little carpy farts.
The hissing ones and the
Lots of the fluffy, airy clouds of judgment and remorse.
Is it trouble when farts are pleasant smelling? Does that make you feel weird about yourself, like you're like turning gay for farts or something? When you're like, oh, your friend farted, and you're like, that's actually not half bad. It smells a bit like bread or strawberries or something.
I want to fuck your farts.
Sometimes they smell like spaghetti, and that's good.
And I can't say mine just smell of bad beef.
Oh, that's not a good one.
Bad beef chips. It's come to this on Podtoid, ladies and gentlemen, by the way. We might as well discuss farts. That's where we are now. We've
never talked about them before, you're right.
I don't think often. We haven't often. I think we may have just mentioned them now and then.
But there's been a long fart talk, yep.
Yeah, but we're innovating and changing. I'm changing the medium of podcasts to make them more mature, more adult, and sometimes my farts look like Ellen Page, who is a magnificent actress, and her farts smell like Smirnoff Ice. That was David Cage.
That was David Cage. I try to laugh less at you now because people have told me they find it distracting. So I try to quietly laugh. Yeah, I guess they think I'm like laughing.
Your laugh.
I don't know.
Your laugh sounds like angels masturbating.
Aw, thanks, Jim. That should be on a greeting card.
I sound like a witch falling off a cliff when I laugh, so I don't know why I should.
I love your laugh. It's so genuine and contagious.
It's not. It's like a witch. It's just. No. Hello, girls and ghouls. I've got a scary story. It'll make you shit your pants. That was the Crypt Keeper.
He's one of my favorites too.
For anyone wondering.
Wow.
Literally the least funniest puppet in the world.
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that.
That fucker tries too hard.
You know, I don't know about trying too hard. I don't believe in that. I feel like if you really tried hard, no one would think you were trying too hard because you would have just done a good job.
I'm eating these marshmallows! More like marshmalloween!
All right, I see your point. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever listened.
So laboured. We were watching Demon Knight the other week, the Crypt Keeper thing, and it was terrible. It's just his jokes constantly. It's like, get some self-esteem. You don't have to always try and be the jester. You don't have to be the class clown Crypt Keeper. Someone needs to sit him down and just say, look, if you're unhappy, talk to someone. When you don't have to keep putting this mask, this front up, Crypt Keeper, when no one gets to see the real you because you're always cracking wise to hide your true feelings. And then, and he would then go and see a psychologist or something.
And start crying and, talking about how much he hates himself and it's inadequate.
I call it ghosts!
I always saw him as kind of. Have you ever listened to Car Talk? It's a very popular podcast on the radio and on the internet. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Really, it's so popular. It's two brothers, and they actually live here in Massachusetts, and they field questions about how to fix your car. but they make the worst jokes and they just laugh really hard at their own jokes all the time, and people love them because people just want to hear laughter and listen to a happy person.
It is infectious. It does make people feel good. But I don't know why they don't like yours.
I don't know. I've
one
been
of my
told
goals.
that I ruined Podtoid and that I'm gay and that I'm the worst. I need to stop laughing.
One of my goals on Podtoid is to make you laugh.
It works. Yeah, you make me laugh all the time.
Like, yeah, I mean, that takes the fun out of it for me if you're not laughing.
Well, thank you.
Whoever said that is a bad person.
It's a lot of people. Quite a few people have said it. So with your endorsement, I will continue to naturally laugh at the things that you say.
Why would I not want people to laugh?
They didn't want my laughter. It's like
when I'm cracking wise.
I don't know. I just didn't want to ruin the show.
More like cracking flies, spooky flies. It gets addictive to be the Crypt Keeper.
Well, that's the thing. It is fun to not care if your jokes are good and then just laugh hysterically at them. So he is having genuine fun.
And obnoxiously, so no one can tell that no one else is laughing.
Exactly. He's having a good time of it. And he is sort of a sadist, the Crypt Keeper, so it makes sense. He likes to see people get hurt, and he's hurting you with his terrible jokes. Oh, that's how it goes, yeah. Hail from something like that.
I'm going to spend this entire Podtoid being like 10 times more annoying than your laugh could ever be. So they will hear you laugh and then think, well, that's not bad. Because every time you laugh, I'm not coming.
I recognize the theme. I think you sang it very well. But back when we were talking about art games a few minutes ago, I'm going to try to segue. I'm going to go back in time and segue to Lollipop Chainsaw, which I think is a perfect example of an art game that does not try to yell at you, hey, look at me, I'm an art game, aren't I smart and important? It sneaks up on you. You don't realize you're playing a game that has any meaning to it until maybe a little later after you've reflected on it. It's got a lot of humility to it, I think. And you wrote a really good article about some of the meaning behind Lollipop Chainsaw that you didn't necessarily pick up on right away. But
it seems to be gaining some ground. I think people like the theory.
It was brilliant. I was happy that you saw it that way and were so quick to accurately and eloquently document it, because people didn't. The people I know who have played it were just like, oh yeah, it was just a stupid beat 'em up. But I'm like, you didn't find any meaning in there? And they're like, maybe there was, but I can't. They couldn't quite put their finger on it. And you,
it's inscrutable.
Really
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Knowing Suda 51. Sorry, as if there's any other Sudas out there that are so popular in the game. Sorry, it's the Suda 51 and Bono Vox. Yeah, lead singer of U2. Yeah, that Bono. Not Sonny Bono. Yeah, but knowing how Suda 51 works, I mean, he's almost always got something to say in there somewhere. But it is inscrutable. I mean, Lollipop Chainsaw looks probably like the least meaningful game, at least released this year. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I saw something that I thought was interesting, and I wanted to analyse that. For anyone who's not read it, I did an article on Destructoid this week called Objectification and Lollipop Chainsaw, which examines the character of Nick, who is Juliet's boyfriend, who is literally objectified, in that he becomes a decapitated head and is worn on Juliet's body like an accessory. He is a literal object, and he's used like it in the game, in combat. He is used like a tool, an implement. And I thought it was very interesting. There's some dialogue with Nick and the other characters, and the way they talk about him in front of him while he communicates, and it makes him feel bad. And they just ignore it because they're too busy focusing on what they want and enjoy. Which I thought drew a very nice parallel with the way women are treated. I wasn't going to go the route I think some people were hoping for and say, oh, you see, men are treated badly in games as well, so that is some misandry, isn't it? Which certainly wasn't my point. Most people understood, apart from some people who deliberately missed the point and didn't seem to understand anything. But most of the people got it, and I had fun. I had a real fun analysing it. And I'm not saying, oh, this is definitely what it's about, and therefore Lollipop Chainsaw is above criticism. There's plenty of criticism people are free to have of the game. The treatment of Juliet as a sex object there's a worthy debate to be had. I'm always up for debating that kind of stuff, or at least seeing the debates, because as we said last week, I'm not always 100% confident in my ability to understand gender issues. Something I'm trying desperately and ridiculously to learn. I only say that just because I'm woefully inept, that sort of thing. But that wasn't the subject I was discussing in that article. I wanted to just see about the parallels we can draw between Nick's treatment in the game and the very real treatment of women, and how reversing the roles isn't, picking on men. It's actually letting men who might not otherwise be able to sympathise with the way women are treated see it from a male perspective and say, well, holy shit, that's kind of disturbing and creepy. Maybe some of the things I've done are disturbing and creepy, Getting to see it from a different perspective, from the perspective of the recipient rather than the provider of the objectification. And I thought it was very interesting. And the guy who wrote the game, James Gunn, who wrote he's done Hollywood and stuff, read the article and said, he tweeted shortly after and said, he could talk about it a bit more in depth, but for the most part, his view of Nick aligns with what I had kind of gathered from it. He said, I seem to mostly correctly assess how he views Nick's role in the story, which I thought was kind of nice. And we may be chatting with him further for Destructoid about Nick and the central themes of Lollipop Chainsaw, which interests me. And, there are plenty of people that will say, there are no themes in Lollipop Chainsaw, it's just trash. It doesn't deserve to be credited as anything other than a stupid game, which people are free to say. I stand by what I said in the review when I said that just because something is dumb, that doesn't mean it can't be brilliant. Mm-hmm. I think Lollipop Chainsaw in many ways is a brilliant game. With, some potentially problematic content that is worthy of discussion. So, that I always try and sit in the middle and just understand where everyone's coming from.
But at the same time, you're quick to and very skilled at voicing your opinion when you're passionate about it. I feel very passionate about Lollipop Chainsaw. I think there's a lot going on there, and I really do get annoyed with people who write it off quickly and decide that just because they don't see anything there, then there must definitely not be anything there, and anyone who does think they see something more in the game is just wrong. That irritates me. And I do think Juliet is portrayed, I really like the portrayal of her and what she symbolizes, at least to me, which is, she's an attractive young woman, and in our society, people want attractive young women. They want to consume them, like how zombies want to consume her. And she gets on a stripper pole, and as they're running at her to eat her, she decapitates all of them. Awesome. Anyone who might try to objectify her or treat her like a piece of meat, she just immediately saws them in half. And it's hard for me to think of why people would complain about that. That's a great thing for anyone in a video game to do, because the thing about objectification is we talk about how women are objectified a lot, because when women are objectified by men and by other women, it's much more damaging on the whole, I would say, than when men are objectified. Like, I get objectified by my friends all the time. They'll be like, oh, you've got those video games I want, right? I'm like, sure. And they're like, just let me borrow them. And they're just treating me like a video game dispensing object. But who cares? Because, I'm not going to have society tear me apart and ruin my entire life because sometimes I get treated like a video game dispensing object. So we all get objectified, but for women, it's a society-wide problem that has led to women not being able to vote or not be able to decide who they marry and all sorts of things. So it's much more serious with them. But in general, what I love about Lollipop Chainsaw, to bring it back to that, is it blurs the lines between, you know, gender roles and right and wrong and in all sorts of ways that I think is really smart and fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that deserves to be discussed about it. Not that you have to if you don't want to, but, you know, even things that are silly and stupid, you can have nice and thought-provoking discussions about them. I don't know what else to say, really.
You did it. You said it. You said it good. And just because it's funny, one of the things I hate about American culture, and maybe it's like this all over the place, but I don't think so. In American culture, they think, if it's a comedy, then it must not have any meaning to it. Comedy is seen as like a cheap and easy way to entertain people, and it doesn't get respected artistically. Very few comedies ever win Best Picture in the Academy Award, and comedy games just get written off as fluff, where more serious hardcore games are taken more seriously. But just because the Lollipop Chainsaw is funny, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have depth, both in terms of gameplay and in terms of symbolism and stuff.
Pretty much.
Pretty neat game. I like it. Don't you love the way the last boss, this is probably a spoiler, but he cries, why don't you love me? But then he literally tries to eat Juliet like a piece of candy. I thought that was quite profound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's another thing worth. I mean, there's this popular idea on the internet of the friend zone, which to me is an incredibly entitled idea of, I've been nice to this girl, but she won't have the sex with me that I deserve, therefore she's a bitch. And sometimes when I think of Swan, the main antagonist in Lollipop Chainsaw, I get that impression. He's blaming Juliet for basically having a boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's her fault that she's got a boyfriend that isn't him. Therefore, she's a bitch, and he shouldn't be a nice person at all because he won't get sex on tap.
Yeah, and the whole world to him, just because he's not appreciated by everybody. Therefore, they all deserve to die, and he turns the world into the zombie apocalypse that he always felt like it was. That's how I saw it anyway, that he never saw other human beings as being real things. And then he blows his own head off, which I thought was... There's a lot of decapitation in that game, and I look into the meaning behind decapitation a lot. I think separating your brain, where your intellect and your reason, from your body, which is where all your drives and your potential horniness come from, means a lot. And the fact that Juliet cuts off her boyfriend's head to remove all of his drives and his ability to do anything, period, but let alone sexually to her, that she doesn't want him to, right at the start of the game, is pretty interesting. Because she was worried he would turn into a zombie, and a zombie would just treat her like a piece of meat and eat her up. Yum. With just a head, she doesn't have to worry about that. I wrote a whole article in my mind about it last night, but if you're doing a thing with James Gunn about it, maybe it'll be redundant. And I did do that episode, I forgot, with Jessica Negri, the woman who plays Juliet. Then the WB still might let me post that, but maybe not. But if they do, then I'll write an article about Lollipop Chainsaw, and if they don't, then I probably won't.
If you don't, we'll burn Warner Brothers to the ground.
Well, now that the game is launched, I'm hoping they have a slightly less... I'm hoping that the people at the WB who just apparently didn't like the video. From what I've heard, some people at the WB was like, oh, that was funny and good, and other people were like, it sucks. And then I was like, well, if it sucks, I can change it or do it better. They're like, no, they're not going to give you any notes on what to fix about it. They just don't like it. So, yeah, no. But other people do like it. So maybe when the people who don't like it are no longer on the case, they're no longer on the project, then maybe the people who do like it will let me post it. Well, we'll see. It's not that big of a deal. It's so weird to me. It's like a 4-minute long video that who cares? But they do.
They're always weird. They have weird rules and fear. There's so much fear that goes on in PR. People afraid of losing their jobs, afraid of things being taken out of context, afraid of the wrong people hearing the wrong thing. And
yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's a sad industry in that way. I feel bad for them. Because they can just get fired. Oh, and then Seth Killian, speaking of PR, our friend Seth Killian quit Capcom. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's... I've only met him once, but it's still weird because that name is almost exclusively associated with Capcom. You hear Seth Killian, you think Capcom in your mind. That was an odd one.
I'm worried for Capcom about that. I'm not worried for Seth at all. I'm sure he's got something cool lined up, but that's close to, if they lose like one more big name that has kind of connected with the fan base, then I'm super worried for Capcom. Like legit worried they'll lose so much of their business, especially after playing Resident Evil 6, which I just didn't understand that game at all. It just seemed like a complete mistake. But yeah, Capcom for years had built up. People hated them for a while when they were putting out like the Final Fight Streetwise and just games that seemed to be pandering without any sort of good ideas. And then they really connected with their fan base for a long time, and Seth Killian was a big part of that. He came up with all these really cool promotional products that were made just for the fans, and he was kind of forming the culture there that came up with the Mega Man 9 box art and t-shirt, and he really made the fans of Capcom games feel like they were now fans working for the company that liked the Capcom properties for the same reasons that the fans did. And then of late, they've really lost that feeling that they got what the fans wanted and that they cared what the fans wanted, I'd say over the past couple of years, year and a half maybe. And now losing Seth on top of all that is pretty dangerous for the company, I think. It's worrisome.
Yeah, I know some people were already saying, "Oh, he's jumping off a sinking ship."
Oh,
That's
really?
it. And there is no that's it. It was hard to type that, but that's what everyone was typing for deaths real, not for play for real. Yeah, it's interesting. There's been all sorts of shifts in games media and games publishing. More than usual this year. It's been odd to say. Refreshing, it's always nice to see a shake-up, but...
Sure.
I know of a few people, a few less well-known, more nameless individuals who have quit big publishing and they've gone into small indie stuff, or even going back from PR to games press is another interesting one. Yeah, I mean... I've even given advice to people. They're like, "Oh, well, I'm kind of sick of working for this big AAA publisher. What should I do next?" And I'm like, "Well, there's some good opportunities in the indie scene. Check them out." I think, especially with the way the digital stuff's going, it's a good time to get into the more up and coming companies rather than these big monolithic ones that seem like they'll be around forever, but doesn't always happen.
Yeah, things come and go, and we forget that because once something is gone, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But even Hello Larry got canceled.
I don't know what that...
I did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Hello Larry was...
I figured it was, but then I felt really bad for not laughing because I knew it was the joke, but I couldn't laugh because I didn't know what it was.
No, that long pause was exactly what I was hoping for. I was like filled with glee that whole time you didn't say anything. I was like, oh, I did it. Hello Larry, for the viewers at home, was a show that lasted, I believe, 6 episodes, starring the dad from Different Strokes' brother. And I believe his name was Conrad Bain. I think so. And he would just walk into the room, and everyone would go, "Hello, Larry!" And he'd be like, "Hey, gang!" And then the laugh track would go. And then, they had problems, and they solved them. And then the show got canceled. So I really hope Capcom is not the Hello Larry of the video game industry. I hope they can fight through this and not die. Hello, Dragon's Dogma did pretty good though, right? People bought that, didn't they?
Did it? I thought I'd heard it didn't do well.
I'm remembering the NPD numbers. I should know this. I'm a video game press man. I remember reading that it was in the top 10 of the NPD numbers for multi-platform. That, of course, Diablo 3 outsold everything last month, and it was just on PC. But then the remaining 9 games, I'm pretty sure Dragon's Dogma was in there. So depending on how they budgeted it, if they budgeted it like Kingdoms of Amalur, then sure, it was probably a bomb. But if they budgeted it like I don't know, a Monster Hunter game or something, if they didn't spend too much money on it, then maybe it was a profit deal.
Yeah, that's a problem when we look at chart rankings. It's because we don't know how well all the other games even sold. It doesn't really tell us how well they were number-wise. But, maybe it did well. It was a good game. Had its problems. But Capcom still got fucking some good name franchises that sell, despite being considered largely crap. Not by myself, but by other critics and gamers. Operation Raccoon City apparently did quite well. So,
sure.
And that was a game that was largely critically panned and has a lot of hate on the internet as well. So, I wouldn't take Killian's departure as much more than what it is, which is just Killian's departure. I wouldn't read too much into it yet. I'd look for a few more signs before we ring the death knell.
Oh, sure. I'm not worried about them this year, but let's say DMC comes out, bombs, Last Planet 3 comes out, bombs, and then Resident Evil 6 comes out and that bombs, then I'd be pretty worried about them. Then I could see them being like, okay, we'll come out with 2 big console games a year and then spend the rest of our money on cheap mobile platforms and stuff like that. I could see that big switch happening if all of their big franchises lose a lot of money. Not much of a chance that'll happen though, but you never know. Man, I can't believe Operation Raccoon City sold that well. Isn't that crazy? So weird. People just had faith in it. I know so many people who pre-ordered it, got it, hated it, sold it back immediately, but millions of people must have done that.
It's the power of a name.
Yeah, it's true. And the concept, I think people are really in love with the idea of getting to bring their Resident Evil scenario to the classic Resident Evil scenario to the modern kind of versus shooter genre. No, it just didn't quite work out though.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I liked the game. I thought it was a good little game. Issues, certainly, but I had a lot of fun with it. And so, then I'm in a minority. A lot of people, as usual, accused me of doing it on purpose. In fact, I keep being distracted because I keep getting links to another article someone's posted on their blog that I haven't heard of before, doing a case study of my writing reviews for hits and controversy, which happens every year.
Really?
Very boring now. It's so boring. But it always distracts me, so that's why I've been weird.
That's okay. You've been fun and weird.
I always get strangely curious when someone sends me a link. Oh, look, here's another blogger who's saying you review games on purpose. Stop reviewing games on purpose. And I always get curious because maybe they've got something interesting to say, and it's always the same thing. And then that disappoints me because it's nothing new, and it flies in the face of established facts and focuses only ever on the score rather than the text that backs it up. When you actually read the text of a review, not just mine, most reviews, and consider the amount of effort and planning that must have gone into orchestrating a review that full of what you believe are lies and make them sound well-constructed and logical. I think few people are possessed of that talent. And if they were, they'd be politicians, not game reviewers. Because, if it were just scores, if the reviews were just, like, no text at all, it was just, Assassin's Creed 4 out of 10, then you might be onto something. But the fact that the number is attached to quite a lengthy review that details all the problems and outlines them, for that to all be false so regularly it's a level of sociopathic, meticulous planning that I don't think many people who aren't Lex Luthor are capable of. So
Yeah, but they love to imagine that. I mean, it's bringing me back to what I was talking about is one of my peeves in general, which is when people do something just because it makes them feel good about themselves and not because it means anything to anyone else, or it's not even expressing anything. It makes people feel so great about themselves to say, ha ha, gotcha, Jim, gotcha, I'm onto your pattern. You pretend to not like video games and pretend to like video games. That's what you chose to do with your life. Pretend.
yeah.
You can picture a guy who's like, well, I could have any job at this point. You know, I'm an adult. I could get my PhD. I could, or I could work in a bookstore. And what do I want to do? I want to pretend to like video games that I don't like.
Yeah.
I don't want
And
to pretend,
vice versa.
I want to pretend to hate video games that I love. You played Assassin's Creed 2 and loved it. You're like, this is so good, but I'm going to pretend to hate it now because that's a good thing to do with your life.
Yeah. I mean, just, I don't know. It's when you sit and actually imagine the reality of the proposal at hand, it's a strange cartoon universe.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, where reviewers are playing a game and loving it, and then carefully constructing highly detailed lies about their own feelings, on a level that puts them next to Dexter. It's very strange, but and
it makes them feel great to think that that's their world and that they've figured you out, because you make people feel people with more gentle, maybe sensitive, weaker, I can just come out and say weaker self-esteems. When you say that a game that they like is not good and you say it in a smart and funny way, it makes them feel bad about themselves. So they're very tempted to take you down a notch so they can feel like maybe you aren't better than them. When you're just different than them. It's not better or worse, but that's not how people with low self-esteem often see the world. They just rank it in terms of better or worse, and then if you don't see things exactly like they do, then they're going to have to tear you apart in order to maintain any sort of ego strength. Sad world they live in, but interesting.
And it's gotten so repetitive and stereotypical. That's the thing. It's like I've tried to communicate this to people. I don't need these links on Twitter and Facebook and what have you, because whatever you link me to, I've already seen. Even if it's not the specific forum thread or blog post you're linking me to, I've seen the argument already close to 100 times over the 5 years I've been writing. It is like anus, yeah. It's like anus to you. You've heard anus many times over the past year, and over the past 5 years, I've heard every argument about reviews, and they've not changed in 5 years. They've never changed. This is why I stopped reading comments specifically on reviews. No offense to people that do leave intelligent and friendly comments, or even ones that do want to engage in healthy debate. You'd have to do it with me elsewhere. Because I can't go through the same things. It's crushing in a tiring way. It's just, God damn it. If I see one more time the same exchange where someone says reviews are opinions, and then someone says a review should be objective, and then another one says but opinions. Both sides as well. I've heard every argument on either side, and it's not changed in half a decade. I don't need to see it anymore, and I actively step away from it because I don't have time to engage in those discussions. The reviews, and I think most writers have an insecurity about their own work, because when you put an opinion out there, obviously you're sharing something of your own brain with the world, so you're going to be defensive of it. But I've had to train myself ostensibly to not defend my reviews anymore, because I've come to the conclusion that everything is in the review. Every time I've defended a review, I've just repeated bits of the review. So now when someone is confused about my review or infers some hidden meaning from it, I just tell them to read the review again and again and again until they get it. Because there's nothing more that you can add. If someone has decided that you were paid by EA to like a game, or if someone has decided that you carefully construct lies to get attention or whatever, never mind that our highest ranking reviews, as I've said many times, are the reviews that are actually in line with the common consensus, because people flock more to things they agree with than things they don't. Especially recently, looking at the numbers on Destructoid and the Jimquisition, it's whenever I tackle a subject and I agree with the common consensus, they do really well, more so than the contentious ones. So, that I've always found that an interesting little sort of fact there. But if you've already decided the intention of the writer, what am I going to say that's going to convince you? I can't invite you into my head with a flashlight to look at what I actually think. So, I just put the text up now and carry on doing something else, and ignoring and or blocking anyone who brings the shit from the review to Twitter or Facebook or whatever, because I don't have the time or the inclination to deal with it there. And I don't like listening to people that don't like me.
Sure, that's it's fair enough. I think it's weird that anyone would think, "Oh, I know what I'll do. Just start attacking a man on his Twitter account. That'll lead to good things." It's very
I had someone who added me on Facebook the other day, which is always funny because it takes a bit more to find my Facebook. It's locked down, unlike Twitter. You have to be a friend to interact with me on it, and it's my more personal space. Sure. I'll talk a bit more about non-game stuff there. And just general stuff I'm up to. So to follow that, you have to be legit interested in me as a person. I don't know why anyone would be, but some people are. And yeah, one guy was following it, and it's that, who was it? That Albert guy who posts on Destructoid every day saying how shit Destructoid is and it should go away and all games journalists are bad. And I'm like, why are you I don't know, but I'm like, why are you friending people on Facebook who you want to essentially not exist? I don't understand. I don't understand the psychology of these people, and I've given up trying. So yeah, I mean, I try and just post what I feel and let it happen, and I don't need the links anymore to the same arguments I read 5 years ago, because these people will come up and they'll think they're saying something new, and they don't. They really don't.
It's fun. Last week I was talking about this very thing, and now you're saying it too. And it makes me feel like we're even closer. We go through the same kinds of things.
Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us telling lies about video games.
Well, with me, it's more the butthole stuff, but yeah, pretty much the same.
So anyway, Jonathan.
Yes.
When are we going to open our own Western-style saloon and brothel?
Brothel?
So yeah, Western Wild West style saloon and brothel.
Wow.
Tuesday, next Tuesday, is when we should do it. Do it at your house.
No, I don't want to have a brothel at my house.
Here's what we need to do. I'll come round to your house with a hammer and as many empty cornflakes boxes as I can carry, because we'll need those for construction. Using the cornflakes boxes, I should be able to make a fully functioning bar on the lower floor.
What? How will you make a fully functioning bar? Doesn't a bar have pipes and dispensers of beer and stuff?
I will have straws. And you'll have to get some, I don't know, empty Coke cans, and we'll ferment our own beer. I'll get to that bit in a minute. Anyway, with the cardboard boxes and the straws, I should be able to make a fully functioning bar, tables with roulette wheels and cowboys playing poker. A piano with a man with a moustache and a hat tinkling on it all day long.
Where will you get a piano?
I'll make one out of Kellogg's cornflakes boxes, straws.
What will you use for the strings? You know, pianos. It's a musical instrument that actually is a stringed instrument. A lot of people don't know that, I guess. But yeah. That's you can't just use boxes. You need to use some strings.
Literally, don't worry about it. Anyway, we need stairs going up to a balcony area, right? And there are multiple doors running along this sort of balcony alcove corridor area up the top, leading to rooms with prostitutes in. Oh. And 2 of the doors are open, right? And I'll employ a woman with petticoats, right? And a cowboy, like a real grisly one with one glassy eye and stubble and a big shaggy moustache and a bandito scarf around his neck. And he'll be chasing her with his arms outstretched and his fingers grasping the air. And he'll be going, like that. And the woman will be going, oh, cheeky, in that kind of Wild West accent. Oh, you cheeky bastard. And they'll be running round and round through the 2 doors. Like, they'll go in one door and come out the other. And they'll just be circling the whole time. And down below, we've got cowboys playing poker and a guy on a tinkly-tonkly, old-timey piano. You will be the barman. You also will have a moustache. And you'll mostly spend most of the day standing at one end of the bar with a glass in your hand and a cloth, and you'll just be cleaning that glass.
Somehow I knew that. That's my new life, just cleaning that glass. And looking at the strangers and thinking about the prostitution in my house. Going on upstairs that I'm just gonna like, I guess.
But it's gonna be okay prostitution. Because it's Wild West prostitution, which is charming. That it's neither exploitative, misogynistic, or illegal, because it is Wild West. Like, the police could come to your house,
they could
knock on the door, and come in, and you will be like just cleaning this glass.
Well, yeah, I mean, remember what you're picturing is basically a scene out of Tombstone or 3:10 to Yuma or one of those great cowboy movies. But what is happening in reality is my house is filled with with cornflakes boxes. There's just street prostitutes. And I guess my landlord, if you go up the stairs of my house, that's my landlord's house. So like, who are these ladies? And just like, there they are. And then a man with a mustache is just chasing one around and screaming, probably. Where is it? Do it! Give me my money's worth. And I'm just downstairs with a glass and a badly drawn-on mustache with like a magic marker. Miserable. Expecting eviction and or arrest at any time. And you're just like, isn't this great? Just like in the movies. Hooray!
Oh, I sound like Mickey Mouse now.
Yeah, you are a mouse.
But I mean, the point I was making is the police could come round and say, we've been hearing like disturbances. There's been shouting and screaming going on. Your landlord's called the police just because this fat Englishman kicked his door in, used one of those metal handheld battering rams to knock the door through, and just invited these prostitutes in.
Just mill about.
There's a ghetto blaster constantly playing fake piano music
near the cardboard boxes.
Near the cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
But I see you're behind an authentic saloon bar, wiping a glass. This must be a Wild West saloon and brothel.
This is what the police are saying?
Yes.
They're convinced?
Why wouldn't they? You'd be behind a bar cleaning a glass. You realise you'll have a moustache as well.
Probably a little vest too. They used to wear those, right?
And a cigar. They'll be like, well, this is a place of business and people are smoking publicly. It must be a Wild West saloon. Therefore, carry on. And I'll be back later tonight to sample some of your fine ale, and maybe one of those gorgeous girlies in their petticoats and brassieres.
Wow, this is one more thing to worry about.
That'll be good. And I will be queen of the bordello.
Is that right?
Yeah, I will be a high-class madam in charge of the girls. And I will wear a red dress with a corset, red and black, with a knitting needle through my hair, I guess. I'll have a cigarette holder, and I'll be like, "Now, ladies, it..."
You're Dr. Evil.
Yeah, I'm being a high-class madam of the night.
Right.
There, my ladies, the Bonanza brothers are in town tonight. The meanest guns in the West. And they've got the meanest cum in the West as well.
Ugh, what is that? It's like sour or something? It just tastes bad?
It's just, yeah.
What's the meanest, like black?
They mostly come onto tablespoons and then just flick it in your eyes.
That is the meanest cum in the West.
It's the meanest cum in the West. We're the meanest cum in the West, girls. So be on your best behaviour. Do you like my authentic Western accent? Be on your best behaviour, girls, and show them your vaginas for money, as is the way. The old Western way. Yeah, they will give you a shiny shilling, and you will show them your anuses. And that's how Wild West bordellos work. I think I don't even know if bordello's the right word. It sounds rude.
I think it is. Bordello of blood. We're back to Crypt Keeper talk now.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Full circle. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be me. So don't worry. I'll be looking after the girls because you've got me in a dress, smoking through a cigarette holder,
and encouraging them to have semen flicked at them in tablespoons and just show.
I'm not encouraging that bit. If anything, I'm looking out for their safety because I'm warning them. Because the Bonanza brothers, they're the meanest gunts in the West. They're rootin' tootin' proper bandits.
But you said for them to not, don't let them flick semen at you. Don't stand for that. You said be on your best behavior, girls. Show the vagina properly so they can move along the business. Is that what you were implying? That
they've got to work. They still my girls have still got to work, is the point. So it's like, just be careful. As soon as you see a flash of silver, close your eyes. But be courteous, because Jonathan Holmes's saloon and brothel.
Oh, it's named after me.
Yes! And there's a signpost outside with a picture of your face, winking and giving a thumbs up, with a speech bubble that says, "I approve of this." Just so that people know it's got the Jonathan Holmes seal of approval, which counts for a lot in Goopy Gulch, which is the name of the fictional Wild West cowboy town that I will pretend this takes place in, instead of the middle of a street in Boston.
Yeah. I live in a nice street, and actually there's rabbits and stuff, so...
That's brilliant!
Yeah, if you squint, it looks like the Old West, I guess.
And if there's rabbits running around, we can do meals.
What?
Meals? Because, after a hard day at the ranch, the cow herds will come in, and they'll want, they'll want their snake bites and other traditional Western drinks.
Oh, yeah. That's
yeah. They'll say, give me a quart of Everclear, cowboy partner. No, that's Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Oh, my mistake.
So that'll be on. They'll get their Everclear, and we can serve them up steamed rabbit that we have caught.
Oh, no. So now I have to kill live animals.
I'll help.
I think it's really depressing.
I'll help. I'll hand you the bricks. We'll do this every morning. We'll get up at like 5 in the morning, 5 a.m. I'll still be keeping my dress on because I reckon I'm going to look lovely in it. I'll hitch them up. I'll hitch the petticoats up around my knees and kind of we'll walk in the field and look for rabbits. And I'll hand you the bricks and you just sort of throw them at the rabbits. Can you cook a rabbit? Do you know how to cook a rabbit?
I don't want to cook a rabbit at all. If I had to, I guess I would. Oh, you know how terrible it is? You have to like take the skin off of it and look at its cute little face and then like look at then it's sort of like Hellraiser after that. It's just like pink.
I can do that. I'm pretty good at cooking, so I can get the rabbit, cut the skin off with scissors, toss it on an electric heater.
Like my radiator?
Like an electric mini radiator. It'll be like a hot plate. It should be, I don't know, 5 minutes will do. Because ranch hands don't have the kind of time to just wait for a rabbit to be done by Gordon fucking Ramsay. Bung it on a plate, serve it with a side of traditional Western saltines, and then they've got a slap-up cowboy meal good enough for Wyatt Earp himself.
So I'm running a brothel in my landlord's house. I have a
saloon and brothel. Saloon and brothel.
Well, I'm just going through the list. I've got a saloon made out of cornflakes boxes. So I basically just have a house filled with empty cornflakes boxes and a boombox. I've got a prostitutes upstairs, and now I'm feeding strangers. It's raw on the top. It's just a dead skinned rabbit, and then just black on the bottom from being burned from a radiator. And just like, eat this. Don't worry about it. Just eat the black side. That's the part that doesn't have germs in it. You'll be fine. And saltines on the side. And Everclear, which is, I swear to God, that's a rock and roll band. Yeah, that's a new... Oh, and you ran with it well.
And Boone's Farm. No, we'll have bottles of Boone's Farm.
What is Boone's Farm?
Flavoured alcohol drink.
Oh.
Hawaiian Blue. We'll
Okay.
give them some of that. That'll go down a tasty treat. That's the kind of thing cowboys drink. So you'll be... This is going to be so good. And I don't know why you're worried. I really don't know why you are worried, because I'm the one...
It's worse than the gerbil wheel idea, which I thought was the worst one, where you were just going to make me poo on command by listening to the Mask theme and just be in a giant gerbil wheel. I thought, wow, that would be rough. But at least that was contained between you and me and the poo. This is inviting the whole world into... It's just, hellish nightmare.
There's nothing hellish about it. It'll have the traditional smoky, rustic atmosphere of...
There'll be smoking, burned rabbit flesh in the air.
That's what the Wild West smelled like.
Is that right?
People will talk about this for far and wide. They'll say... We need to go to Jonathan Holmes's saloon and brothel for the sights, the sounds, and the smells of the Old West. Come through the revolving, flappy saloon doors, which Jim Sterling, artisan and entrepreneur, built by kicking in the front door and replacing it with 2... cornflakes boxes that you just kind of kick aside.
It'd fall right off. It would just, I'm just gonna have a house with no doors, filled with prostitutes, burning rabbit flesh, and just strangers, just strange men that you've invited in. Called them cowboys.
They won't be strange men. I'll find them under a bridge. They'll become your regulars. And
they will.
At the end, and you'll get compensated, because every day I'll give them, chocolate money coins. And they'll give you that in exchange for the drinks that you have bought from Walmart. Cheap, cost effective.
Okay.
At the end of the day, we split the chocolate coins. And that's profit. You can do whatever you want with those chocolate coins. Apart from eat them, because I will need them all back by the next morning to hand back out to the bridge bums.
I predict that with your plan, we are in jail or dead within 24 hours. Easy. Maybe 12. And I'm leaning towards dead.
That's a
Someone would kill us, or we'd die from rabbit meat poisoning.
But Jonathan,
Mm-hmm.
you nudge the saloon doors aside with your feet and walk in, and it's like you've stepped through time to the world of the quick and the dead. There is a photograph of Gene Hackman on the wall.
Okay.
So you know it is like cowboy times. All around you, on circular tables, which admittedly will probably be dartboards balanced on bricks, there are authentic dirty cowboys playing poker. And by that I mean Pokemon, because they are the only cards I could get my hands on.
We would be dead within.
Right? I'm not done describing this exotic, wonderful world. You cast your eyes aside to find a traditional tinkly-tonkly piano man sat next to an authentic cowboy ghetto blaster playing Girls Just Wanna Have Fun as they sang round the campfire in yonder times. Cast your eyes upstairs. There's a dirty old man chasing a prostitute. If he catches her, he'll hurt her. But don't worry, it's all part of the fun. And just when you think things couldn't get authentic enough, just when you think you've seen it all, and you can go home and feel like you stepped through the past itself, like in Back to the Future 3 or 2, whichever one was cowboy times.
That was the third one, yeah.
You see a bar. And behind that bar, a 35-year-old bald brown man with an Adventure Time t-shirt cleaning a glass with a bit of tissue paper.
That's my mustache. It's just some toilet paper glued to my face.
Yes. I'm thinking maybe a sycamore leaf, which we've duct taped on. And
if we're lucky, we would just be forced to go to the psychiatric hospital. That would be the best possible outcome for this. If we do it for more than 10 minutes, then maybe we'll just be forced to take psychiatric medications.
I'll be honest with you, Jonathan.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to be perfectly honest and straight, and I expect you to be so with me.
Sure.
I'm sensing you're kind of down on this idea.
It's weird because it started off with a feeling that, maybe this, because it wasn't outwardly trying to, I didn't feel to use prior terminology. Other ideas you've had have been pretty objectifying, Jim. Just staring at me in a hamster wheel, forcing me to do all sorts of things. Wasn't there one where you're going to slam twigs into my face?
We were going to be, Cenobites.
Yeah, for the summer.
All good ideas. All meritorious schemes.
They've been fairly objectifying. You've treated me a bit like a piece of meat. But this one, it felt like, wow, that's not where he's coming from on this.
You're in charge.
Yeah, I'm in charge.
You're the barkeep,
but in the end, it did turn into the most dangerous, troubling, potentially lethal of all your ideas.
Because to me, this seems like the most doable. the most easily... Because, all you need are cornflakes boxes and a ghetto blaster.
And you're inviting so many strangers into... a house with no door.
Right, but you're saying this as if it's impossible, right? How many people in the world do you, know as a friend or an acquaintance?
I don't know. Probably a few, yeah.
Yeah, let's just be generous and say, 150.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
There are 6 billion people in the world, right?
Yeah.
There are way more strangers than friends. True. So you're saying that as if it's impossible for me to find strangers and fill your house with it?
No, you can find the strangers, but they would be anyone you walk up to on the street and say, "Hey, got a great idea. Running my own saloon and brothel in Arlington, Massachusetts. How would you like to just be in there with us? Don't worry about it. No one's going to do anything weird to you, for sure.
You get chocolate money.
Anyone who says, "Oh yeah, all right, that's all that's the best thing I could do with my night is just be in a stranger's brothel." Yeah, it's unsavory characters.
All right. So here's the thing. Here's the thing, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
What is your problem with him?
I enjoy, my life is not perfect. I get frustrated sometimes. I have tough times.
We all do. We all do.
We all do. But I do like. I'm very appreciative that I have the basics. I have my physical safety, my health, my freedom, my sense of control over my immediate surroundings. And your plan will immediately destroy all of those things that are the very basic foundation of my adult existence in general. I'm going to have my landlord is just going to watch strangers have sex tonight. If you had your way, there would just be porking right now with him there, and just a ghetto blaster playing old tinkly. That alone can get you in trouble. Knocking your door off and then just playing and
girls just want to have fun. The old campfire hymn.
That alone will get you in trouble.
Will
that
it?
Alone.
Who with?
The prostitution.
Who with? Haters of music. They're not people, Jonathan. Barkeep. Sorry, that's your new name. We need that legally changed. You're going to be called Barkeep Holmes. We'll actually have to change the whole brothel name. So Barkeep Holmes's Western Saloon and Brothel of Prostitutes. That's the full name. Barkeep Holmes's Western Style Saloon and Brothel of Prostitutes. Brackets Fiat to Jim Sterling. So it's like a rap song.
I'm going to try to change the subject. I'm going to try to do it. Maybe you'll like this. Maybe you'll like it. Sure. I read a comic book recently about prostitution, so this is a segue, and it's a pro-prostitution comic book. Okay.
Okay.
But we don't want to talk about it because if you have an opinion about prostitution, people will get mad at you. I just realized. So we don't want to have an opinion about it, do we? Or do we want to risk it?
Oh.
He's pro-prostitution. He's been sleeping with prostitutes for like 9 years.
Okay.
He's got a monogamous relationship with one of them now for like 5 years. Mm-hmm. He's like, she's the only person he has sex with, and he is the only person she has sex with, but he pays her every time. And he's like, people get married for the money a lot of the time. This is just kind of doing it honestly. And he says he's madly in love with this prostitute. He loves her, but he thinks that the way romantic relationships are structured, it's asking for trouble to expect someone to live with you and kind of take on your whole identity with them. So it's like, we just keep that part of it separate. Uh-huh. It's kind of like business. So,
quick question.
Yep.
Can we get her to be one of our prostitutes in our saloon?
I tried. I thought that was a really thought-provoking idea, but no. It's back to you thinking about taping toilet paper to my face and.
If that's your only problem with it, we can. we don't have to use duct tape. We can use surgical tape.
That is not my only problem with it, no.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sad now. Oh well. Back to the drawing board. I don't want to talk about prostitutes.
Okay.
In a real sense.
I know. I tried.
Yeah.
No,
if you're for prostitutes, you support rape. If you're against prostitutes, you support telling women what to do.
Right.
And neither side is a side I want to antagonize today.
Yeah, I definitely, I will say I see his point in that his big thing is, well, I'm not telling people they have to be prostitutes, but if someone wants to be a prostitute, it's kind of weird for us to tell them what they can and can't do. And wouldn't it be better for them if it were legal and therefore they could get help if something terrible happened to them? I mean, as it stands now, a prostitute gets hurt and then she has to admit that she did a crime in order to get help from the police. But if it weren't illegal, the police would be there to help her. So,
well, I mean, I'm not for the legislation of anything anyone does willingly with their own adult bodies. So that goes as far as prostitution and drugs. Anything you want to put in, anything you want to do with, so long as it harms no one else. I'm certainly not going to judge anyone. And it disturbs me that people, as adult humans, are told by a stranger what they can and cannot do with or to themselves. So I guess that's where I am, but I don't want to get too much into that, because Podtoid at its core is a family show that doesn't really try to skirt any potentially controversial or offensive issues.
That's right.
Yeah. So how many things do you think you could fit inside your anus?
Very few.
At a stretch, at a push.
I'm not. There's many things I don't know about. My own anus is one of them. I've touched it with toilet paper.
I bet you have.
I've washed it a bit, but I've never tried to put something in there, so to speak. It's a figure of speech for fingering your butt, I guess. And
you could.
Yeah. I could.
That's the amazing thing. That is the amazing thing. Like your anus is always there, just there, and you've got fingers. And if no one could stop you, if you just like, well, I'm squatting naked on the floor, I could put a finger right up there, and no one need know.
As long as I was not in public, sure. Yeah, I mean you can do that.
That's where I went wrong. That is the last time I go to my stepson's show and tell. Did you get it? I was talking about fingering myself in front of children.
Yeah, that would be trouble.
That was the joke of that was the end game there. So we've talked about farts, prostitutes, fingering anuses.
Yeah.
It was that's a podcast.
It was a good show. It's a weird note to end on, but it's a short show, but it's because there was an hour of me trying to get...
Yeah, it's like, again, I don't think we got time for Willem Dafoe this week. I apologise. We talked about him with Beyond.
Yeah, he had a presence in the show.
Yeah, I'll have something next week, though. I've had it for 2 weeks. It's really, I promise you, absolutely, it is not worth waiting for.
But that's a great way to set it up. I feel like the less people expect, the better, in general, in life.
Always.
And especially of podcasts and our podcast. It's too bad. I wanted to talk to you about so many things. I really do like talking to you about things. Steel Battalion, that's a thing that happened. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing that game would get released.
That game needs to be recalled.
Yeah, amazing that happened. And poor Kinect, I really do feel as though every complaint anyone ever had about the Wii is now just 10 times worse with Kinect. It is everything that people hated about the Wii, but worse. And that's sad that that's the direction that motion controls are going in. And that it's so popular. It's selling so well still, Kinect, and yet such little worthwhile software on there. Dance Central and a couple of other things are good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh, that's sad.
Fuck Kinect.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm still holding out hope that there'll be... They had so many awesome ideas before it came out. Did you ever hear about that game that you were going to control by... your character on screen just looked like 2 fingers, and you were going to control the walking by moving your fingers in front of Kinect, and you'd kick with your finger, and you would kick on screen and stuff like that? That one was actually going to be cool.
Well, they had all sorts of ideas, but they gutted the Kinect before it went to market to keep the costs down. And we've got nothing but an idea that it just sits in your room as a concept. It doesn't do anything much of value. Even the voice commands. Because my stepson proselytizes about Kinect, constantly telling us, we should use the voice because it is better. And by the time he was done saying Xbox, Netflix, Xbox, I'd already clicked on the show I wanted to watch on Netflix because the buttons were right there next to me quicker.
It makes me wonder, because I think that the stuff I like must be good, or at least that I think it's good. But when I hear about people liking stuff that's just the worst, it makes me wonder, like, am I like them and I just don't know it? Because your son has no idea that he likes something awful.
Yeah.
I'd assume, yeah. And maybe, is all the stuff I like, is it crappy, Jim? Is it stupid and lame and I just don't know it?
It is to someone.
Weird.
Someone views you the same way, many of us would view, say, a Twilight fan.
Whoa, because I like Adventure Time and Super Mario Galaxy and stuff like that.
We are all Twilight fans to somebody. Apart from Twilight fans who have no brains and are mollusk-like creatures.
Our mutual acquaintance Lee Alexander wrote something about Twilight that made me understand why people like it. It was really smart. Did
she write vampires LOL?
No, she wrote that she feels like once as a woman, she was saying, once you've reached a point where you're confident in your relationships, you know that you're not just going to get treated like a stupid teenager who is wrapped up in mindless drama and their world revolves around boys and whatnot. Once you've established yourself as a real human being and not just treated like a gender stereotype, then you can let yourself every once in a while sink into that a little bit and be like, oh, I want to think about how scary it would be to have like a sexy werewolf who might try to make out with me, or you let yourself go to a place that's sort of primitive and simple, because the rest of your life is going well enough that you can be dumb for an hour and a half every once in a while, and it's okay. The guilty pleasure, so to speak. I thought that was a pretty good way of looking at it. She knows Twilight is garbage, but there's a part of her that wonders what it would be like to have a sexy vampire and a sexy werewolf both lusting after her, and that's not such a bad way to feel. So,
vampires, LOL.
Yeah. Her and Colette Bennett both love it, and we both like Colette Bennett a lot. So I can't really bash Twilight fans after that.
LOL. I've got no time for it. Fair enough if people like it. I tried watching one of the films once, and it wasn't even bad enough to make fun of. It was just bad.
There are parts that are bad enough to make fun of, I think. It's almost, to me, it goes like this. Airplane, Airplane by the Zucker brothers?
The movie?
Yes.
Yes.
That's, far into being just clearly a parody. And then up from that is like Mars Attacks, which is a parody, but a lot of people missed that because it's not so overt with the comedy. It's very subtle and weird. And then I think Twilight is right next to Mars Attacks. It is just self-parody, but it's very subtle about it. The part where he's like, "You're like my heroin."
Oh, yeah.
Come on, that's funny, no? Funny?
Yeah, but not in... I mean, just Swift as a writer upsets me.
Swift?
Because
is that her name?
I thought maybe it's Stephanie something.
Stephanie Meyer, I think.
Meyer! I don't know where I got Swift from. Is there such a person as Stephanie Swift?
Jonathan Swift.
Jonathan Swift.
Yeah, he's a good writer.
It was Stephanie Meyer. The fact she doesn't do basic research about the town, she sets her fucking thing in, so she gets everything about it wrong. The dialogue. Yeah. I saw a breakdown of just mistakes that are in the book. Actual mistakes. And it's shameful. It's shocking. Just how poorly put together that whole story is. But I guess so long as they keep reading about how perfect Edward's body is, it doesn't really matter. But I don't know. I've considered, because I've still tried to... I'm certainly not saying I'm better than Stephanie Meyer, and probably even worse. But I've been working on a book.
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking about that. How's that going?
It's not too bad. I've not had much time to write the actual story. I've got the entire thing mapped out now. But, you know... but sometimes I do consider just starting writing something like Twilight. Just trying to do it as seriously and earnestly as possible. That kind of supernatural, ippy-drippy teenage high school love story type thing. Just as seriously as possible to see how funny the results would be. And market it as a comedy.
You never know. That from your mind, that could be really something special.
Yeah, I mean, just turning half of the scenarios we come up with in Podtoid and trying to turn them into actual erotic romance stories in a novel for high school people.
Yeah, for high school men and women.
Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
Maybe I could be the next Stephanie Meyer.
It's possible. Oh, and they might reboot Twilight. I've heard rumor that they're planning on remaking the first film.
Of course they are, because what else is Hollywood going to do? Have ideas.
Well, that brings me back. I know we were trying to end the show, but I was really interested in what you were saying earlier in email about having ideas and Mario Brothers, because I was mad about Mario Brothers for a change. Because one of the guys at Nintendo, not Miyamoto, someone else, there was an interview with him and they asked him, so why do Super Mario Brothers U and New Super Mario Brothers 2 just look exactly like their predecessors? There's no change in this at all. And he's like, well, you know, I want to maintain that style so when people play it, they immediately know what to expect and they feel comfortable with what's happening and they don't have to... I got the sense he was saying he didn't want the audience to have to work, so they were keeping it simple. And, you know, fair enough, but it pained me that they might be holding back ideas that they actually have in order to play it safe visually, in order to appeal to more people and be more palatable, which... That's my least favorite thing about Nintendo is when you get the feeling that they're not actually expressing any ideas when they're just doing what they think is going to be palatable. It's my least favorite thing about any developer, but when Nintendo does it, it's especially sad for me because first and foremost, I've always thought of them as a studio run by artists, Miyamoto being an artist, of course. And Miyamoto never thought he was going to get rich doing any of this stuff. He never thought he was going to be a big famous cartoonist. He drew cartoons because he loved it, and he also made games because he loved it, and he's, you know, carried that forward with Nintendo as best he could. Like Pikmin 3, Jesus, that is not what the market wants right now, yet he's making it because he loves it. And then to hear another guy at Nintendo basically say thoughts totally contrary to that, just like, oh, we just got to please as many people as possible, kind of bummed me out. But you were actually supporting Nintendo on that, weren't you?
At least understanding. I don't know what the problem is here. It's a sequel to a game, and they want it to look like that series. I don't see the problem here. You know, I'm against further simplifying games to just making them homogenous and like everything else on the market. But New Super Mario Brothers is unique enough as it is by virtue of the fact that it's one of the few games out there doing that type of game anymore. I don't think they need to like dramatically reinvent the art style or anything. I think they're happy with how it looks. If they said they were unhappy with how it looks, but they're keeping the visual style to appeal to the people that already bought the first one, then there's obviously creative being overruled by marketing. But this was a decision made in conjunction with marketing and creative, where they decided it was best for what they were making to retain the familiar art style. I didn't see a problem with that.
If he had said that, if he had said, well, we really like the way it looks, so we're not going to change it for its own sake, and it's appealing to people, then I would have not felt weird at all, because unlike Tony Ponce, who wrote a really good article about how he's actively annoyed that the new Super Mario Brothers games look like the old ones. When I first played New Super Mario Brothers U, I thought it looked fantastic, and I felt no need for it to look any different than it did. So technically, I have no problem with it. It was just more the thinking that particular guy seemed to have, that they were making their decisions guided by appealing to as many people as possible, and maybe kind of ignoring their creative instincts or desires in that was sad to me. I never want Nintendo. Maybe it just speaks to my fear that Nintendo is going to be more like how the rest of the market seems to feel to me. After E3, I just felt like everything was just trying to pander, and so few new ideas out there, and just do what works and do what people are going to buy, and it's depressing. A few games looked great, but
it's a balancing act. You know, you've got to balance your creative ideas with something that's going to have the art survive. Speaking as someone who does videos, you know, I listened a lot to feedback from users to work out what they liked and what they didn't like, to constantly change the way the show goes. And bits that work, I'm going to keep them. I don't see why I wouldn't keep them if they're working.
Well, as long
and
as you
people
like doing them.
Well,
That's
yeah,
the thing.
but I mean, the Nintendo gave no indication they don't like the way New Super Mario Brothers U looks.
They didn't give. That's what I think was missing. If they had said, "Well, we really like the way it looks," that would have been enough for me right there. But they didn't touch on that either way, which worried me. Now that I think about it, it's Japan. I'm trying to think of a time a Japanese developer said, "Well, I did a really good job on this game." I can't think of a time that's ever happened. They've got humility just ingrained in them culturally, from what I can tell. Kojima's constantly slagging off on his own games, and Miyamoto saying his games aren't good and stuff like that. So maybe it was just humility, right?
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, either way, I think we're going to see a lot of this. And probably a lot more egregious, because something tells me we're going to get a lot of, you know, Mario Galaxy HD type stuff. You know, Kirby's Epic Yarn HD, just these re-releases. Certainly stuff like New Super Mario Brothers U, where here's something that's like an old game, but the central gimmick is now you get to see what it should look like. That's something I think they can probably milk for a while out of at least out of its main core fan base.
I wonder. I do think that the Wii sold with people that don't care that much about HD, so now trying to sell HD to them is going to be an uphill battle, because they didn't care in the first place. That's why they used their $50 to buy a new Super Mario Brothers Wii instead of Portal 2 or whatever came out that year. Their values aren't in line with the HD values yet, and I don't know if they ever will be. We'll see. People just might not care about graphics in that way. It'll be interesting to find out. It will be really depressing, though, if we just get a bunch of ports and kind of half thought out upscaled HD semi remakes. I think that would be bad. I've heard that's on the table, actually, for a lot of games. A lot of just, you know, making a Wii game with HD graphics. I won't name names because I'd get in trouble, but yeah, I really hope that's not the direction it goes in. We'll see, though.
Yeah.
Video game talk.
Video games. What a... God, ending the show on video game talk. That's upsetting.
I'm sorry?
That's upsetting me.
Oh.
No, I'm only telling one of my rip-roaring, rib-tickling, knee-slapping goofs.
Oh, I thought you were really upset. I was worried.
No. I don't care about anything. I don't care about anything anymore. I don't care. Nothing. Doesn't matter to me.
Is anyone mad at you right now?
Someone always is.
That's so weird. I think people are mad at me.
I had a guy who found my personal Tumblr blog which I just, every now and then, I haven't written in it in ages, but he found it. I realised because I was getting discus notifications every time he made a comment, which he made over, I think the space of an hour. Just spent an hour finding my blog and then posting in every single blog post I made, just letting me know that he doesn't like me. And that I'm fat, which was a shock to me. I marked a couple of them as spam and then turned the notifications off so that he can just keep posting and I don't... Again, it's like I don't care that people post about me, it's just I don't need to see it because it's the same shit. So he might still be doing it. I was just trying to watch Game of Thrones, and that's going on. So...
And he could have been watching Game of Thrones. Think of all the things he could have been doing with his life.
Oh, so much more. Could have been doing so much.
Studying. He could have been working towards a college degree.
Yeah.
He could have been
I think
exploring the world of insects.
I think he got upset at me because of he was upset at me on a Monday night because of something I did in a Friday afternoon, the prior Friday. And they're still upset about it when some people have been trying to claim there's misandry in the video game industry, which is the hatred of men, which I found beyond pathetic. Beyond pathetic. And I did an article on Gamefront where I just said misandry in video games, grow the fuck up, because it was a very childish and selfish thing to see that, one group of people are being treated poorly, and you kind of get jealous of that and decide, well, if they get to say they're treated poorly, I want to say I'm treated poorly as well. And that seems to be where it's coming from. And they're all upset.
I'm honestly curious about that. In what way would they say... I mean, we all get treated poorly. I get treated poorly sometimes. You do too. But it's not as though it's because I'm a male and that I'm being targeted more than women are targeted because that's the only way to call it misandry would be to imply that men are having a worse time than women, right?
Pretty much. They're being judged based on their gender, which they're not. I think Alex pointed out...
What?
Alex said it best when she said, just because a bad thing happens to a man, that's not misandry. That's a bad thing happening to a man. It's not happening to all men, whereas there are attitudes in this industry and in every other industry, really, where women as a entire gender are being judged and patronized and held back in many ways, to suggest... I mean, I'm not saying there aren't people out there that might hate a man just because he's a man. There might be. But to say it's a problem prevalent enough in this industry to talk about, especially when the examples you give are things like, oh, these video game male characters have muscles and I don't. It's, it's a fundamental lack of understanding of what sexism is. It's more than that. It's way more than that. And as a member of an entitled sect of people, it's hard to identify with and assume what's going on because you from birth have had this advantage, which isn't your fault for having. It's just an advantage you're born with. As a male, society favours you a bit more, and because it's so normal in your life, you don't know that other people don't have it too. And some people understand that, or if they don't, they're like, well, okay. And some people get angry when it's suggested because they're like, well, I have a job and worked and have money, and I don't have $500 million. And it's like, that's not what privilege and actually means. It just means you've got more chances in life than someone else, which men have.
Yes, indeed. There's never been a female president. There have been many, many rich male CEOs. I can get fat and ugly and bald, and people don't think I no longer have any worth. My worth has gone down in people's minds. People do say, oh, I don't want to look at a bald guy in a video. But people still will watch me in a video. If I were a woman and my looks had dropped the way they did, people would just say, well, I won't watch her in a video ever. I don't have to worry about how I look like how women do, and I don't have to worry about a million different things like how women do. It's much better for us.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Well, as I said, I mean, obviously the person from Feminist Frequency started that Kickstarter the tropes versus women in gaming, and was assaulted verbally and across the board really badly. I mean, it was a huge deal for the past 2 weeks. People threatening to rape her, people having a go at her for being a Jew, you know, just real like racist and sexist stuff. And then these other people decided to rather petulantly say, well, there's misandry in video games, let us do a funding video for that. And I'd be curious to see how many people threaten to rape the men that set up their Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Because I'm willing to place money on the fact that the answer is no. No. No one was threatened. No man was threatened to be raped. Certainly not by a woman. As retaliation for setting up their Kickstarter. They were made fun of. And I know some of them have tried to claim that's misandry, but again, it's like, no, just because you were made fun of, that doesn't mean that the industry hates you as a gender. Well, even if you were,
it's kind of going back to what we were saying about Lollipop Chainsaw and Nick getting objectified. Nick got objectified, and for me, that was fine. I was like, oh, a guy got objectified a little bit? That's fine. He's got plenty of other advantages going for him. Not a big deal. If you do get discriminated against for being a guy every once in a while, you know what? Count your blessings, because it's nothing compared to what people who actually have a society that holds them back on a day one basis go through.
That's it. I think people think that complaining about the and I'll hold my fucking hands up. I've had these similar beliefs before. It took me a long time to understand the grievance at play. But what people don't understand is if the worst thing that happens to you is there is a character that idealizes your gender in a game, you're pretty fucking set and lucky and good. The trouble is when it comes to women being treated that way in games, that's not the worst bit. That's just part of a whole bushel of shite. Yeah. It's not. That's why trying to compare misandry and misogyny in games is so. It's impossible to directly compare the two at all. And that's why it's a problem, because it's not only an issue, it's also symptomatic of something even wider. And it's sad that video games are bringing these people, like these hateful people, out of the woodwork, because I've always considered the gamer community to be a bit more open-minded and a bit more accepting of other people. The millennial generation in particular is considered more forward-thinking than the baby boomer generation and Generation X towards, gay, all LGBT issues, gender issues and race. And when I see stuff like this, it's, I don't know, it doesn't gel with what I would like to believe about my generation, and that's sad, because I like to believe my generation gets it more right than the baby boomers and the Gen Xers did. But what can you do?
That's nice. That's nice of you. I think that baby boomers aren't as angry. That's the thing about our generation and the internet combined, is that there's this like angry sense of loss that I get from so many people in their 20s and early 30s. Just a lack of identity and a lack of purpose, and a feel that the rug is going to get pulled out from us at any second, and it just brings out the worst in people, lowers their standards for their own behavior, I think, and it makes them act awful. It's pretty yuck. Let's be happy. Let's think about happy stuff. Let's think about what do you think about just like not it's a flying baby, but it's not like flying through the air like it got thrown, because that implies that it's gonna like hit the ground and be in trouble. But just like a really slowly flying baby, like just a few inches a second, being like, ah! Does that make you feel good?
That makes me feel good, yeah. Let me try. A baby sat at the end of a pier.
Okay.
And it's just kicked into the ocean.
Oh, that's much worse. That's
Is it
much
not
worse.
as good? It's not as good as the Flying Baby. It's not as happy, is it? I've got a lot to learn.
Yeah, you'll get there. Absolutely. You've got the basics down, baby. People like that.
Baby, yeah, we start with a baby. And then
Don't kick it in the pier.
don't kick
Step
in. Yeah, step 1, baby. Step 2, don't kick it in the ocean.
You know, a guy wrote a manifesto. It's called the Cute Manifesto, and his name is James Kolchelka. He's a comic book artist who also loves video games a lot. Writes about how good they are, and our friend Ashley Davis is following the manifesto. The manifesto is just be as cute as you can, and your life will go great. You'll be happy, and the world will be happy. I think you do that, Jim. You have a definite cuteness to you that. Much like how a Suda51 game may not see what's really going on there on the surface, people may not see your cuteness on the surface, especially
Well, no,
when
because
you're...
the surface looks like Bulk from Power Rangers.
No, that's not it. You've got a cute surface, but you sometimes are boisterous, and people might think that you're upset or angry, which is hard to be cute and angry at the same time, but you're adorable.
Exactly. David Cage. Anyway, we should wrap this up because it's almost 7 p.m.
Yeah, we insisted. It's almost been 3 hours that
we almost hit our fucking we almost hit our 2-hour mark. Bloody ridiculous. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to Podtoid, as per the usual. I've been Jim Sterling, I've been with Jonathan Holmes. No Holmes are on the show. We should have mentioned. He will be back. Better be. Yeah, better be. We're fucking killing. What have you got going on this week that you want the listeners to maybe check out, which we say at the end when everyone stopped listening?
I posted a feature that I was not particularly proud of, to be honest, about Tomb Raider. I almost didn't do it because you wrote one, Alistair Pinsoff wrote one, and the lovely Holly Green all wrote one, but I'm supposed to write one when I do Talking to Women About Video Games, so I didn't wuss out. I wrote it. You can read it if you want. I've heard people hate it. I basically say that they shouldn't have taken Lara Croft, who was an iconic character who represented a minority in the world of video games, being a female action hero, and they took away her iconography and they took away her action figure status, and therefore kind of diminished how she's depicted as a minority with this new Tomb Raider trailers and the interviews. I don't know how the game is, but the trailers and the interviews, I feel like I've kind of gone the wrong direction with the character. So I wrote about that if you're interested, and there's also a video where I strip down to a women's bikini bottom and get pushed in a pool by Jenica Katz, who is a writer for Flixist. That was all her idea. She was actually the one who told me she thought that the new Lara Croft sucked, so I just kind of ran with her thoughts.
I need to point out,
Yep.
It's Lara Croft. I need to tell this to everyone because they keep writing Laura. It's Lara Croft. I think that's the worst part of this whole scandal. This whole Tomb Raider sexism scandal.
I'm supposed to say Lara, but I say Laura.
It's that you say and write it, because it's not just you. Well, yeah, I actually wasn't talking about you when I tweeted it, and then everyone said, "Oh, Jonathan Holmes said it." So I need to envelop you in it so I don't look like a hypocrite. And it's not the only thing I'll envelop you in. Ha ha, my fat tits. Lara Croft, please, writers. Don't put the U in there when you write. Lara
you know what's
Croft.
weird about me? I like that mistake, and I get a weird sadistic satisfaction out of people getting so uptight about inconsequential detail like that. Like I'm always, that's when I'm my biggest jerk. I am a jerk when I get a weird fascination with people being mad about stuff that's not important at all. That's when I'm at.
You are worse than the Crypt Keeper.
I'm a real dick, yeah, because when people get mad about just me saying a sound slightly wrong, is there anything less important than that? But they get really upset, so I let myself do it. Anyway, good point, Jim. Yeah, Lara Croft is what she's called. So I did that, and then this Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, a live stream talk show. Isn't that exciting? With a guy named Sean McGrath, who is the developer of a new PSN game called Dyad. He's been working on it for years. It is kind of a tunnel racing game / music-themed game. It's got really innovative gameplay and quite striking visuals. You'd have to see it. It's called Dyad, D-Y-A-D. He'll be on the show talking about video games, video game development, what he got into it, what he likes, what he doesn't like. He's also made some allegations of the directors of Indie Game the Movie, a game movie. He may talk about that, he may not. I almost kind of hope he doesn't, because I like the Indie Game the Movie directors, and I like Sean. I don't want to be in the middle on that fight, so if he talks about it, I'll just kind of let him talk. I certainly wouldn't tell him what to say or what not to say, but it would be less awkward for me if he didn't bring it up. But he might. He's more or less said that they lied in Indie Game the Movie and made his friend look bad, because he's friends with a guy who, if you've seen the movie, a big part of the story is that Phil Fish, creator of Fez, had a business partner who almost didn't let him release Fez, which kind of paints the business partner in a bad light. But Sean is friends with the business partner. Sean said the business partner was willing to be in the movie and give his side of the story, but they turned him down so they could just kind of paint him however they wanted.
That doesn't sound good, if true, obviously.
Doesn't sound good. Yeah, and I don't know what to think, because again, I know Sean wouldn't lie, and I know the Indie Game, the movie people are on the up and up too, so something weird happened. And so anyway, Sean may talk about that if you're interested. And also, I should mention that podcast I'm talking about, that live stream podcast, is now on iTunes. It's called Sup, Holmes, ? And you can download all, I think there's like 16 or 17 episodes already, where I talk to video game developers about what they think of the development process and where video games are and culture and blah, blah, blah. It's a little bit brainy, though it's a little bit stupid too. You might like it. And if you want to be a part of a live taping of that, you can join us in the live stream this Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Destructoid.com, and also on Destructoid's Twitch TV channel. It's where it live streams. Did that all make sense, Jim?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I was thinking about cats and MP3 files. Yeah, that's exciting stuff. Over on Destructoid.com, we have, there's always great stuff, you idiot. You can read my Lollipop Chainsaw objectification article. It's quite good. We got a lot of cool reviews coming up, none of which I can remember. Fuck it. Just check Detoid every day. At escapistmagazine.com, my new episode of The Jimquisition is called Why Do People Hate EA, which is a response to IGN's article, which was also called Why Do People Hate EA, in which they asked EA why people hate EA. And unsurprisingly, EA said that people shouldn't hate EA. And then I said that maybe people are right to. So that's interesting. Otherwise, I do columns every week on Gamefront.com, and also our sister site, Destructoid's sister site, Flixist, had me on their podcast the other week to discuss Prometheus. I know some people have been asking me what I thought of Prometheus. You can find out everything on that. It's the Flixist podcast. I don't know what they call themselves.
With Jenica Katz, huh? They're the same person.
Yeah, with Jenica, yeah, Jenica.
She's great.
Yeah, Jenica, Maxwell, Alex, all the hits. All the
people
classics.
Should know, because people listening to this are probably like, I don't care about those guys. Those guys are one of you. Jenica and Alex and Max listen to the show religiously and do all the weird jokes when I see them in real life. They're suddenly asking me about pedophilia and talking about your bacon-shaped penis and that stuff. They are of the Podtoid mentality. So
they are wonderful people. They are some of my favorite people. And I had a good time with them, so look for that. The episode is called The Prometheus Cast. It was kind of an addendum to their usual one. So it's like an hour or two where we talk about Prometheus and some Alien stuff as well, because obviously I'm a huge Aliens fan. And that's about it, as usual. You can follow us on Twitter. That's Jonathan Holmes' Tronnots, TRONKNOTTS. That's an amalgamation of Tron from the films and Don Knotts from the Things. You can follow me at Jim Sterling, all one word, just my name. You can get an Android app for Podtoid on Amazon.com. Only ever get it from Amazon because it doesn't fucking work anywhere else. Just $2 for some reason. It just gives you podcasts. I won't sell it any more than that. It just helps us out a bit if you want. You certainly don't have to. Otherwise, subscribe to us on iTunes. Write us nice iTunes reviews. They always make me feel good, apart from the ones where you just say we are bad people. And I guess we'll see you next week.
Yeah, that's great. Good show, Jim. Thanks for putting up with all my technical problems and general trouble.
Yeah, no problem. And we'll see you on next week's Podcats, like a witch's cat. Oh, got a weird head rush doing that last one.
Of course he did.
Oh.
That was intense. I couldn't have done that.
More like head thrush, like a scary ghost's vagina yeast. Ha 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 ha, I am the Crypt Keeper.
I had thrush once.
Good.
Yeah, it just makes everything taste like metal and yeast, and you just are sad.
Ah.
That's thrush for you. Don't get it.
That's a nice note to end on. Don't get thrush, listeners. Goodbye.